In the stillness that follows the death of the last black hole, the cosmos enters a new kind of existence, one devoid of structure, devoid of life, and seemingly devoid of meaning. This is not the void that preceded the Big Bang, but a void saturated with the residue of everything that once was, a phantom existence, the ghost of a universe. What lingers in such a place? At first glance, it seems absurd to speak of happenings in an arena where nothing happens. But we must not conflate silence with simplicity. Even in the darkened aftermath of cosmic dissolution, the rules of quantum mechanics do not cease. Virtual particles flicker in and out of existence in the vacuum. Tiny probabilistic tremors ripple across the emptiness. Nothingness, it seems, is never entirely empty. These fluctuations, infinitesimal and seemingly inconsequential, are more than curiosities. According to some models of quantum cosmology, they could, given unfathomable spans of time, trigger the birth of new universes. This is the idea of cosmological natural selection or eternal inflation, that our universe is one bubble among countless others in an ever-inflating multiverse, each bubble governed by its own physical laws. Where we see an ending, the deeper reality might be a new beginning. But to place our hope in this is to dance on the edge of speculation. Such ideas, compelling as they are, remain untestable, perhaps permanently so. We cannot see beyond our cosmic horizon. We may never know whether our universe is one among many, or whether its silence is final. Even if another universe is born, its laws might preclude observers' thought complexity. It may be utterly unlike ours in every conceivable way, an echo without relation to the original. There is a tendency, deep in the human psyche, to recoil from finality. We fear the irreversible. The idea that everything, absolutely everything, can vanish without remainder contradicts our need for continuity. We construct myths and theories, metaphors and equations, all of them perhaps ways to forestall the unbearable recognition that all meaning is temporary, that there is no cosmic witness, that the universe will not remember us. And yet, even this grief has its wisdom. The philosopher would ask, is meaning something that must endure? Or is it something that arises in the act of living, in the fleeting union of consciousness and cosmos? If the value of a song is not in its eternal echo, but in the moment of its hearing, then perhaps the finitude of the universe is not a defeat of meaning, but its very foundation. Consider the heat death once more. In this state of maximal entropy, where all thermodynamic gradients have vanished, the universe exists in perfect equilibrium. But such perfection is indistinguishable from death. Nothing changes, nothing moves. This is the most stable possible configuration, and therefore the most sterile. It is the final answer to the question entropy always asks: how many ways can matter be arranged? And the answer, in the end, is one, the dead way, the quiet way. Yet there is irony here. The universe in its youth was also a kind of equilibrium, hot, dense, homogeneous, the same everywhere. Structure arose not from order, but from imperfection. Tiny quantum fluctuations stretched by inflation. Those flaws were the seeds of galaxies, stars, planets, life. The universe became interesting because it was not perfect. In other words, life depends on imbalance. It is the deviation from thermodynamic stability that allows complexity to emerge. You are alive because there is a flow of energy, from the sun to the earth, from chemical gradients in your cells, from the order of DNA to the chaos of heat. You are a structure built upon a temporary difference. This is the paradox of being. It arises in the midst of unbeing, and it vanishes when balance is restored. Life is a tension, not a solution. And perhaps the death of the universe is not a failure, but the final relaxation of that tension, a return to simplicity, the end of the cosmic struggle. The scientist, meanwhile, must face these prospects with equanimity. The observational evidence is sobering. The expansion of the universe is accelerating, driven by a force we call dark energy. This energy, spread thinly through space, seems to be constant in density. As the universe grows, more space appears, and thus more dark energy. The result? Exponential expansion. Galaxies recede from each other faster and faster, eventually vanishing beyond each other's horizons. Communication becomes impossible. Isolation becomes total. Eventually, each galaxy will become a lonely island, then each star system. Finally, each atom. The night sky will go black. Not because the stars have all died, though they will, but because their light can no longer reach us. The cosmos becomes not a graveyard, but a prison of infinite size and zero doors. Some models suggest that even protons may not last forever. Though the standard model of particle physics assumes proton stability, many grand unified theories predict proton decay over timescales of 10^34 years or longer. If true, this would mean that even the atoms of black dwarfs and neutron stars will eventually dissolve. Matter itself, not just its structures, will disintegrate. The universe will be not merely lifeless, but matterless. If time persists long enough, even the concept of event loses meaning. When the average interval between particle interactions stretches to trillions of years, it no longer makes sense to speak of process. Change becomes a mathematical abstraction. History ends, and yet something remains. The equations still apply. The vacuum persists, space expands. There is, in the final silence, a kind of fidelity. The laws of nature do not weep or rejoice, but they endure. At this point, we enter philosophical territory again, perhaps even metaphysical. Can something truly exist if it is indistinguishable from non-existence? Is a universe of eternal stasis more real than one that never was? Some thinkers argue that being and non-being are not opposites, but twins. That the boundary between existence and absence is thin and permeable. That to ask what remains after all things die is to misunderstand the nature of death. Others propose that consciousness, not as individual minds, but as awareness itself, is the fundamental ground of reality, that the universe is a manifestation of perception. In this view, when all observers vanish, the universe itself collapses, not physically, but metaphysically. A reality unperceived is no reality at all. Yet this idea is both tantalizing and dangerous. It risks reducing the universe to a human-centered dream when all evidence suggests otherwise. The stars do not need us to shine. The laws of gravity are not altered by our understanding. The cosmos is vast, impersonal, majestic in its indifference, and still we observe. Still we ask. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the answer to what happens when everything dies is not to be found in equations or theories, but in the very asking, in the refusal to turn away from the abyss, in the courage to imagine silence and speak into it. The story is not yet over. Time still ticks. The stars still burn. The mind still wanders. While there is thought, the end has not come. And if thought must vanish, let it vanish, having looked unflinchingly into the void and said, "We were here. We saw. We knew. We tried to understand." As the curtain falls on the cosmic stage and all structures dissolve into the flat hum of thermal equilibrium, what remains is not just a question for physics or cosmology. It becomes a question of value, of purpose, of what it meant to have existed at all. These are not secondary concerns, they are, in many ways, the most important ones. For if everything we build and everything we are is doomed to vanish, then what justifies the effort of life? Why should intelligence rise and strive if the stars it dreams beneath are themselves dying? This, more than any other, is the abyss we circle when we ask what happens after the universe dies. It is not only the fear of extinction, but the terror that all meaning may die with it. That the universe, once it returns to entropy's cradle, will not only lack observers, but also stories. No one to remember, to record, to carry forward even the faintest trace of our thoughts. Philosophy has danced with this dilemma since the dawn of reflection. The Stoics urged detachment from external outcomes, pointing to virtue as the sole good. The existentialists, confronted by a godless cosmos, insisted that meaning must be created, not found. And yet, in the face of universal death, even these answers tremble. If no one remains to witness our virtue, does it still matter? The response to this dread takes many forms. Some turn to religion, believing that this universe is only a prelude to another eternal and preserved in spirit. Others look to the future of technology, hoping that advanced civilizations might escape this dying cosmos, tunneling into other realities or reshaping the laws of nature. Still others place their faith in legacy, the idea that to have lived well, to have known and loved and thought deeply, is its own sufficient justification. And yet, in the cold logic of the end, even legacies dissolve. The most brilliant mind, the kindest soul, the greatest discovery, all will be lost, as surely as the last star will fade. There will be no memory, no resurrection, no final audience applauding in the dark. Here, the scientist and the philosopher must face the same conclusion. There is no guaranteed meaning written into the fabric of the cosmos. The laws of physics are not moral laws. The expansion of space is indifferent to your suffering, your joy, your questions. But indifference is not the same as negation. That the universe does not grant meaning does not mean meaning cannot exist. It means we are the ones who must create it. And what we create may be ephemeral, but that does not make it trivial. A painting burned in a fire does not become less beautiful because it no longer exists. A life ended in death is not less real because it was temporary. A civilization vanished with its sun is not meaningless because it did not endure forever. Consider this: the deepest truths we have uncovered, the most exquisite insights of science and art and philosophy, arose not despite our mortality, but because of it. The urgency of time gives weight to every choice. The shadow of death makes the light of thought shine brighter. If the universe were eternal and unchanging, there would be no story, no contrast, no striving. We live in a cosmos that permits beauty because it permits decay, that permits intelligence because it permits randomness, that permits love because it permits loss. Our very nature is forged in a furnace of impermanence, and so the end of the universe is not merely a doom, it is a revelation. It reveals to us that what matters is not what lasts, but what is. That being is precious precisely because it is rare. That the moment is sacred, not because it will be remembered, but because it happens at all. Some scientists speculate that advanced civilizations facing the heat death might attempt to delay the end by creating star-lifting engines to extract energy from fading suns, or building computational minds that run at ever slower rates as temperature drops. They might stretch the final thoughts across eons, making the last whisper of consciousness last for trillions of years. But even this heroic effort cannot outrun entropy. Eventually, the game must end. Yet perhaps in that final second, some consciousness will look upon the dying light and say, "We understood. We burned bright in the darkness." And in that understanding, in that last thought, the universe will have fulfilled its own potential. Not by persisting, but by becoming self-aware through us. Through minds that wondered, feared, wept, loved, and dared to ask what lies beyond the end. When everything dies, the universe does not become meaningless. It becomes complete. The story, long and tangled with its galaxies and black holes, its thinking beings and lonely stars, finds its last punctuation. Not a bang, nor even a whisper, but a pause that contains all that ever was. And in that pause there is peace. Not the peace of ignorance, but of comprehension. The peace of having looked the end in the face and not turned away. So what happens when everything in the universe dies? The answer perhaps is this: everything that mattered already happened.